But I mean, now, like you said, it's, like ketamine. Ketamine is now considered a medicine, psychologically.
It always was, you fuckers. They just didn't want people tripping their balls off. That's why it was a cat tranquilizer, because cats could handle the trip.
Cats have good taste. They're
Well,
cool.
technically it's a dissociative, but I mean, it's funny that we ended up talking about ketamine,
right?
Because it is the club drug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'll be honest. I mean, I loved ketamine, and it was, and I would get to places that felt like sort of Buddhist states of disassociation, and I suffered from anxiety and depression, and I would notice, I was like, man, it's funny. I do I'll go out and have like a ketamine club night, and then I feel okay about life for X amount of time afterwards, and now with, now that these studies are coming out and stuff, I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah. No, I remember crying on it, but feeling good, and but feeling the release of like baggage. I mean, I was on ketamine the first time I realized that my family was dysfunctional.
Yeah. I mean,
and that was like years before my parents broke up.
Yeah.
I was just like in a hotel room with my friend, and I go, holy shit.
Yeah.
It had never occurred to me. I thought we were like a very tight-knit group.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's like a potentially life-changing sort of, realization or whatever.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Ricardo Harris Fuentes. He is co-director of the space that we're currently in, TSA LA, Tiger Strikes Asteroid LA. We've covered, I'm not going to make you explain Tiger Strikes Asteroid because we've done that in several different episodes already.
Great.
Where did you grow up? Out here?
That's a long story.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just say this. By the time I graduated from high school, I'd gone to 15 different schools. So I was born in California, moved all over California, Northern and Southern California. My parents were academics. They were traveling for research. So I lived in Nicaragua, Brazil, Argentina for different little spots. And then I went to the East Coast to Boston and Washington, D.C. for high school and college. Then went to Chicago for my graduate degree at the Art Institute of Chicago. And then finally back to L.A. after that winter broke me.
So how many winners was it? Just one or two? Six winners. Wow. Yeah. Carl, you were introduced to me by Carl Barada, who has also talked about leaving, being like, F this.
Yeah, totally.
Cool, man. So then what was, I mean, I've had people from, the Art Institute, the school at the Art Institute of Chicago. What's the acronym again?
SAIC.
SAIC. I've had people on before, but I've never really talked about the experience of the school. What was that like, aside from the frostbite?
Right. It was heaven for me. I mean, I went to a small liberal arts school that didn't have, just didn't have like a really developed art department. So when I got to the Art Institute, it was like Disneyland for me, with artists and, just incredible. It was, I mean, I do think it's a really unique, or art schools are really unique places in the world where, creativity abounds, and, you just meet the most extraordinary people. So for me, it was heaven. I just loved it.
And you did your MFA there?
I did my MFA there. I kind of had to crawl in the back door. Like they didn't accept me at first. So I took some undergrad classes and I got into the post-bac program. And then finally the MFA program. So, but I loved it. As soon as I got there, I was like, oh shit, this is dope. I want to stay.
Yeah.
So.
And then how's your network? How many people from Chicago? I mean, because it feels like a lot, maybe not from your class, but there's a lot of SAIC.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of the big clearinghouses of art schools. And so there's networks all over.
I'd never heard it referred to like that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people doing really well. I think that they actually do a bad job of like figuring out who all their, stellar alumni are, because they just don't have a ton of money the way other, like a Harvard or something does. But, I joke in my building, there's off and on like, 3 to 5 SAIC alum living in. It's like an artist, it's like everywhere. Yeah. But I remember driving through Hollywood and seeing Carl like loading a body into some, trunk somewhere. I was like, hey, I went to school with that guy.
And it was a mannequin. Just for mannequin. Imagine just the FBI showing up at Carl's house and being like, hey guys, what's going on?
No, I think he was moving art, I think, at that point. But
Yeah. I'm maybe oversensitive about the thing is that I haven't read YouTube's terms of services all the way through. So I assume everything is bad.
Yeah. No, there was that, who's it, like a serial killer called into Howard Stern in like, you know, it's like, yeah, you got to be careful.
You got to be careful, yeah. But we're pretty sure Carl is not a murderer.
No.
Hey, Carl.
He's like the sweetest guy on earth. So.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. And then, all right, so then I'm imagining a lot of that Chicago diaspora is not just because the scene is bigger here, but because of that winter thing, right? Mm-hmm. Although Chicago is amazing in the summertime.
Yeah.
Cool. So then excuse me, I always kind of try to get people a sense of people's art origin stories. Like when in your travels, was it when you went to Rome?
That I started kind of getting into art.
That you were like, I'm an artist, or that you had inklings? How did that process?
I think, you know, I mean, like probably all of us, I drew, my mom has this little postcard of me when I was 3, like I couldn't quite fully speak, and you know I was already drawing, you know, like I think it's always been in me. Always drew growing up. I took some art classes in college and loved it, and then did like a summer art class thing, and like almost wanted to drop out of college and kind of just do that, but you know, wisely my parents were like, no, you can't do that. Get your degree. And you know,
what was your BFA, your BA or BFA?
Yeah, no, I got a BA in philosophy.
Philosophy.
Yeah, not
and
art.
And they were excited about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it was just kind of like a general, you know, thing. I think my mom majored in philosophy, but I don't know how I got into it.
So then what are your like main, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But it actually kind of is part of my larger story in a sense, because I think my work actually is kind of trying to pick up on some of that stuff. You know, I think my interests are kind of like, what's the point of life? You know, what's it all about?
Which philosophers did you gravitate towards the most? Like, I mean, sometimes you read stuff and you're like, oh, this is interesting, but it doesn't resonate. Yeah. But what are the people that like, you read that? I mean, I'm probably not going to know these names, but maybe you can give us a little insight into their philosophy.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, you know, I like the Greeks, you know, which are kind of at the, you know, at the beginning. I thought they, you know, that philosophy was not so distant from like real world concerns, you know, like what's the meaning of life? You know, what is the world? That, you know, that kind of stuff that was, I could relate to.
Is that different than existentialism?
No, and then I kind of came back and I, you know, came around to, you know, like Nietzsche and the existentialists. That was like the other group that is more, you know, recent that I got into. You know, I kind of like lost it in the middle. You know, it's like Kant. There's like some really heavy shit. It's like, you know, the Germans are hard to understand until Nietzsche, you know, and stuff like that. And
what's Nietzsche's deal? Like, because the only thing I know is his Übermensch.
Right.
Stuff.
You know, he's just so, I think his writing, his style is so beautiful and so powerful and humanistic, and it's wild too. You know, it has all these aphorisms that are, you know, like they're almost like koans. You like read it and you're like, what the fuck? This is awesome. You know, but I think what I was actually relating to is I think he was getting some Eastern philosophy that was not translated so well, or they had an imperfect understanding of it, and he was trying to kind of decipher it and contextualize it within you know, Western language. And so that's the stuff that is very close to my heart now. And so I think coming through that, you know, he also he kind of goes back to the Greeks and has some really beautiful stuff that, you know, about like the Bacchus and,
Bacchus is the drunk. So
yeah.
The Dionysus.
Yeah, exactly. Bacchus and Apollo. You know, I love that shit. The kind of, you know, the two different modes of being in the world. So
yeah, I'm so, one of the things that I do love about like the Romans is that I'm literally having a hard time remembering which version of the gods those are. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's so crazy about that is that they were not like the Romans, for all their evils, were not. They like would bring, like they would take culture from places, right? Like that was like, it wasn't just an exporting. What is that noise? It wasn't just an exporting of, hopefully it'll stop soon. That's what I'm talking.
It's Bacchus's little flute playing.
He's like, you guys should not be drinking LaCroix right now. Yeah. That whole attitude of like, you know, we're so different, and like because there's so many people that try to draw parallels between the American Empire and the Roman Empire, and like I get it, but like it's
They were way more fun. I mean,
yeah. they were crazy too, and like their mores were different, but as a society, I'd love to think about that. So then, like, tell me a little bit about the Greeks. And what was this? So this is like classical era? Or,
yeah, classical era. There's Socrates and Plato. I love those stories. And then, it moves to Aristotle and it gets a little, I mean, this is, eons ago in my brain fibers, but.
Well, I tried to read the book Mythology by the one that was really famous, but it was like from the 60s or 70s.
Right.
I just remember walking around and all of my parents' friends being like, all the boomers being like, oh yeah, that's a really good book. And it's so dense and so inaccessible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do find all of that stuff. So then what is the work is mostly about existential. I've seen your work. We're obviously not in we're at a TSA show, which is an exchange with a Korean group of artists, right?
Right. Correct. Yeah. Correct. And I apologize. I'm not going to be able to say their names or speak.
Well, we don't list, as a policy, we don't list names here because you always forget the last one.
Got it.
If it's a list of 3, you forget the third.
Yeah.
If it's a list of 5, you'll forget the 5th.
Yeah, totally.
So I always cut them off.
Amazing. Thank you.
It's a courtesy.
Come see the show. That's the best plug.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, we've been watching this video over my shoulder for a little while, and we're mesmerized because it's like high end, fancy, but it also is contemporary in like ways that we maybe are too old to or put into our own work.
Yeah, totally.
Well, cool, man. So then, tell me a little bit about like the philosophical bent, because I've seen the work, but I do like what people are working on that maybe doesn't necessarily always make it to the forefront, or you don't know until you talk to the artist.
Right. Yeah. So I got a nice kind of general background on the Western canon of philosophy. And then sort of at the end of college and then afterwards, I started studying Eastern philosophy or Eastern spirituality with like Buddhism and Hinduism. And that really, I was like, oh, this stuff I can really, kind of sink my teeth into and have more of a resonance with, I would say.
And then, so the Buddhism is more of like, letting go of desire, right? And it's so that you're not dealing with disappointment. I mean, this is a bastardized paraphrase, and possibly offensive. So what is Hinduism? What's at the core of Hinduism?
I would say Hinduism is the same, except that it has this incredibly rich canon of gods, and just incredible stories, way, way better stories, I would say. I mean, you can kind of think of like Hinduism as like Catholicism, and then Buddhism is more of like a pared down Protestant strain of some of the same stuff. I think, even historically, I'm not an expert on that stuff, but I think when Buddhism came along, it was because Hinduism was just like so wild with all kinds of gods and deities. And
are there so the stories are they like kind of mythological, like the classical Greek stories? Where gods are turning into crazy animals and having sex with humans and stuff.
I'm trying. I constantly am. It's not Vishnu, the other one, the elephant god. What? I'm blanking on the name, but
Shiva, the only one I think is Shiva, but that's not the elephant one.
No, maybe it's Vishnu. Yeah,
I think maybe Vishnu. Might be
like one. He gets his head cut off, and the mom is heartbroken, and so then she cuts off a baby elephant's head and puts it on his head. So then that becomes his head. Like pretty amazingly wild stuff. That's up there with the Greek stuff.
Yeah, and we have the British Empire to thank for never hearing those stories. Hello, England. Cool, man. I mean, I think this stuff is interesting. Did you have a specific topic for today that you wanted to talk about? Because I'll just keep asking you about this stuff.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
Okay. What did you grow up?
This is a fun one. It may be fun, fun, not fun for you. So my parents sort of started off to almost like, very ultra left, kind of almost communist.
Your parents are what background?
So my dad's white American born in Tennessee, kind of grew up all over. He was an army brat. And then my mom is Mexican, born in Puebla, Mexico.
But that's interesting because a lot of people don't know that Tennessee and all of these places used to have a very that's what the matter with Kansas is about, that book, right?
Yeah.
Like there was like a very strong leftist movement there,
right?
Maybe a little racist,
right? Yeah. No, and so my dad grew up an Air Force brat. My grandfather was in the military, in the Air Force and stuff. So my dad, he jokes that the military is almost like communism. Everyone's kind of taken care of. Everyone's in uniforms. Very communal kind of living.
Run by the state.
Yeah.
Which technically isn't communism, but I get what you're saying, like Stalinist communism,
Yeah. And so anyway, he, is kind of like a classic 60 era's radical. They're not like...
That sounds so old. That sounds so outdated, right? Like radical. No. The idea of calling yourself a radical. I started to do that recently too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And so, not full communist, but, interested.
But like in the time of Abby Hoffman, when those trials, which were a crazy circus on purpose, like the first social media influencers.
Yeah, totally.
Meets a little jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. And so he kind of, my mom was into that at first. She's kind of veered away, but going to the religion stuff. So they weren't too religious, but then my mom, I think, pretty early on in her life, got into Judaism. She was born Catholic, Mexican Catholic, but she got turned on by Judaism, and then she subsequently converted. I don't know, 25 years ago, something like that. And so I grew up, like I have. My mom and my stepdad have a kosher house and stuff like that. So I grew up with a, kind of Jewish background. My dad was also kind of new agey, and he introduced me to Buddhism and that sort of stuff. But I didn't grow up with like a real strong, it's funny to say, religious environment. My mom did some of the customs and stuff like that, but they weren't like, you have to believe in the Jewish God. And, there was none of that. But
also the new agey tradition, my dad also did that for a while too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he's probably still, I don't know if he still meditates, but he used to like wake up at 4 a.m. and meditate for like 3 hours.
Wow.
And we would wake up in the morning and like, he would be doing exercises where he's like knocking on his head.
Nice.
And he has this like, he had this like, it's a pole and then just a board to like support yourself for like long-term meditation. Cool. Yeah, he was pretty into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. And I think that it is very much of that generation where it's like, the counterculture maybe happens and then you're looking for something, but the American cultural landscape is not really, and also for like my dad is white by our by like, when he goes to Latin America, but over here, he wasn't treated like that,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And, even connecting our stories, my dad wrote a bunch of books on Che Guevara, like, been to Cuba a bunch of times.
My dad was more of a neoliberal. But
Yeah. No, and I say that because, sometimes I'm in situations, I've, Cuban American friends where it's like, I can't talk about that stuff. And,
the Cubans are very, they're not a monolith, and it's funny because they don't like they don't like the flirtation with communism because they've like have a very particular understanding of it. I don't think anyone really in this country really has a sense of like what their like parents went through. It's really easy to just be like, these guys are white, and it's like, but like there's a lot of memery going on about like how everybody that fled to the U.S. was like a slave trader, and I was like, I don't know if that is that accurate.
Right. Yeah.
Like they were definitely came from conquistadors, but I don't know when slavery ended in Cuba, but it's not like my grandparents had slaves.
Right. Yeah. I think the last place it ended was the U.S.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if it was recent because it's like anytime you're a client state of someplace that is like...
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, but I get what you're saying. Like Latin American politics is always very intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I sort of grew up in it, and I think it, you know, it
Well,
does,
you grew up in Nicaragua too.
yeah,
right?
yeah, we were there, you know, during the Iran-Contra conflict. You know, we lived in this, I mean, ironically, this like plantation, like a sugar plantation that my dad rented while he was teaching there. And, you know, there were like gunfights in the, you know, the distant hills behind and stuff. So.
Have you seen Susan Meiselas' work on that?
I haven't.
Oh, dude, yeah. I think it might make you nostalgic.
Yeah, yeah.
It really, yeah, she was shooting those Sandinista wars.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Do you have memories? Like how old were you?
Yeah, I was 7 there, so I have pretty
yeah.
you know, solid, you know, memories of that and stuff, and like, yeah, going places with the Sandinistas. I mean, it was not enjoyable for a kid.
No,
It's
terrifying.
cool.
You can't go outside. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think that kind of the sort of trauma of that, I think, is informed my work at different times and stuff. So, yeah, and you know, I mean, ultimately, in connection to, you know, that sort of radical past of my parents, that didn't feel like the way for me. You know, in terms
to be a radical.
Yeah, you know, in terms of just even resolving, you know, sort of conflicts and stuff. And so, I mean, I think I went more of a spiritual route, which
I think it's probably more dangerous for you to be a radical nowadays anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's just the surveillance is just insane. I mean, I know people that have like had like people of my parents' generation that have their mail opened when they receive it, like steamed open.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's no joke.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was serious terrorism going on at the time too. There was like the Weathermen and shit like that.
Right. Yeah.
But cool, man. So which were the Latin American countries? You named a couple. You named
Nicaragua, Argentina, Brazil. Those were the sort of primary places. But, you know, we were in all of them, you know, doing different small, you know, trips and stuff and doing stuff. So
Brazil is cool, but mad dangerous. Yeah. So what period was that?
Just a little bit before Nicaragua. So I was 7 in Nicaragua. So probably, you know, early 80s.
Yeah. Man, I could just picture the shorts. I remember wearing those shorts. I was in Costa Rica at around that time.
Yeah.
And then I didn't leave to go to Italy till around then. Cool, man. So then you do seem to have like leftist leanings though, like more so than, you know, your typical person that's voted for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm obviously very liberal. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm, you know, like a Marxist or anything like that, or even know what that's about, really.
Well, you would have to read it to be able to say that, and I haven't read it.
Yeah, totally.
Well then, okay, so then, so just a little bit more on where you're at with your process then. Like, what are you interested in versus like how has it evolved?
Right. So through, you know, I got into Buddhism because I broke up with a girlfriend when I was in high school, and I was like, how do I deal with this pain? And so that kind of started its own like sort of spiritual journey for me, and kind of getting into these Eastern religions and meditation practices and stuff like that. And so I, you know, kind of always harbored that sort of interest, separate at first from my art, you know, practice, you know, getting into painting and sort of traditional painting from life and that sort of stuff. But at a certain point in grad school, basically, I was trying to figure out how to have those two things overlap, which at the time at the Art Institute and I think in contemporary art, there was not a lot of appetite for, you know, I mean, I remember trying to bring up spirituality in grad school and people were like, ugh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
You know, at that point, we were just coming out of like painting is permanently dead, you know, so like I could paint, but...
And then people just kept buying paintings.
Yeah. You know, and then spirituality was like, oh my God, this guy's into painting and spirituality. Forget it. He's done.
What do you think people like saw it? Like, were they like reacting to you like you were into crystals, or were they like,
yeah,
Western guy into Eastern stuff?
I don't even think they responded at that level. I thought they just thought I was an idiot.
They just didn't like religions.
Yeah,
they were just secular. Elitist.
I mean, you know, one thing I thought, and hopefully I don't get in too much trouble for saying this, I felt like Chicago had a bit of a problem that they were trying to. They embraced the second city thing a little too much, and they felt like they were kind of in the long shadow of New York, so I felt like it sort of actually tamped down some of the creativity at times there. And so it seemed like there was like a strong push for abstraction there. When I was there, everything was kind of like...
Yeah, that is always one of the weird things that I found with institutions like that. Like, there's like the Micah Brown, like the people that go to study at Micra become obsessed with a specific shade of brown because of the colors of in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And it's strange like that and then like Cal Arts has this very, very specific conceptual bent. Like it really is interesting when you're studying to, like, there's some level of conformity involved in that I think is like not discussed. You know what I mean? It's like
I used to love standing in front of the Art Institute. You'd see all these like office people walking by because it's right on Michigan Avenue, and they looked a particular way, and then all the artists were hipsters, and I was like, oh, they all look one way, but they're all dressed exactly the same in their group. It was like two schools of fish swimming against each other. But it's funny to see like, oh, that's definitely not an office worker. The conformity within that group. I learned what a hipster was in Chicago. I didn't know before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What year was that?
2006. I just, I was late to get the memo. I was like, what is that? They're kind of like skaters. But...
No, that is around the time where the term started to emerge. I feel like I've been out and I was talking to somebody while we were hanging out, and the subject of hipster came up, and then we started looking around and trying to spot a hipster. I don't think that exists anymore. I think it maybe went out with a man bun.
Right.
Like that might have been like the last one, because now everybody's just kind of... like I don't know,
or just took over all of LA,
or maybe I'm just blind, like snow blind, when all you see is white.
Or you were a hipster now.
Maybe I'm a hipster and I'm just...
That's just culture. That's how...
It's just they're just people. What has your style been? I like your style, by the way.
Oh,
I respect a man that does the... I've also done the sweatpants.
Yeah.
I'm not calling you out. I like a nice looking fancy sweatpants.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually gonna go hiking after this, so I was like, I need to pull the fancy sweatpants out. But
I was a little disappointed you didn't dress up in the clown suit that you promised.
This is a clown suit.
No, I like your sense of Prince and stuff. What were you growing up? Were you like a skater kid? What kind of...
No, I was like a club rat.
Club rat.
Like
house music?
Yeah, like
Steady
house
beat?
music.
Or break beats?
No, just like trance.
Okay.
House and tech, like at the beginning of it here, it's like, why? I mean, you'll like this, that people are always like, still, they're like, are you from Miami?
Yes. Dude, I've said that. I said that to Carl. I've said that, or no, who did I say that to? Anyway, I was just at Art Basel, and you are 100% correct. You do have that's why I thought you might be from Florida. Yeah. Just because you're a Harris Fuentes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something about that. Yeah, I should check it out. I mean, I love Miami, but...
But no, I mean, the club scene is fine in Miami. I was into it too, but I was more of a raver. Mm-hmm. So like there was overlap, but but it sounds like you were more into, like, were you going to warehouse parties and stuff like that?
Yeah, I couldn't find that many of them when I was growing up. I mean, I studied abroad for a year in England and went clubbing there and loved it. Mm-hmm. And in a way, that's also a big part of my work. That I don't.
I've seen some black light.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to like talk about that. In certain intellectual circles, but I mean, it's in the art world too. But for me, it was a very special experience. Doing the stuff you do in clubs and
Molly,
and feeling like you're one, and you're surrounded by lights and people and that connection, simulated, fabricated connection.
What year were you in the UK?
I was in London.
In London? Mm-hmm. What year?
98, 99.
Dude. Yeah. Okay, I can see. I mean, that club scene probably is very different than the Miami club scene. When I think of Miami club kids, it's different. It's like a lot of like, but when you said trance and not house, that's where I got like, okay, we're a little bit more Euro. Did you hang out with any Euro trash?
Oh yeah, I mean, I loved Euro trash. Yeah, that was my jam. Yeah. And then I came back here and I was like, why is it in weird warehouses and creepy corners and stuff like that? I was kind of looking looking for that. And then it seems like it migrated. And, you know, I went to Miami, I don't know, more than 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, this is an incredible club scene. You know,
no, Miami's club scene, it's varied. There's definitely like, and it's been so long. But the thing that was... It's the same people, you know? And so you were a club scenester is what I'm getting. Yeah. You like would see this. It's basically like being part of the art scene now. You know, it's just a different, instead of art, it's like everybody likes trance. Yeah. That's very cool, man. Yeah. I can picture it. I mean, just being from Miami, like, you're talking when you were in London, that was like, when Chemical Brothers was making the UK popular over here, you know, like, and we were like, and then that movie with, what's his name, the 24-Hour Party People. Have you ever seen that?
No, but for me, the big one was Trainspotting.
Trainspotting, you know? Yeah. That was a crazy movie. Yeah. that fucked up a few of my friends in Miami. And totally. It was like, oh, it's not that romantic. Yeah.
Dead Baby?
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it was a good movie, though. So then, like, you're a raver, or you're a club kid. Was there a lot of like other art kids in that scene? Were there?
No, it's funny. It was like I had to make a personal shift, you know, and it happened in Chicago because I kind of came in as this like person, you know, kid interested in art. I'll just rewind a little bit to my story. So I went to school in Massachusetts, got an undergrad degree in philosophy. Then I went to New York after school, and I was like, oh, well, I want to be, you know, I love art and I want to be rich. So I'm going to be an art dealer because that seems like that's the marriage of, you know, art and business. But immediately within like literally 9 months, I went to work for the Pace Gallery, and you know, it's like a very intense kind of Devil Wears Prada environment. And I was like, fuck this. I want to be an artist. This is just so dumb. You know, and that's when I started taking some classes at this place called the New York Studio School, which is kind of like a very traditional painting from life thing. And that was kind of where I started to be like, okay, I'm an artist. This is dumb. I don't want to do anything but make art and for a living. You know, but so it was kind of like I had two personalities, club kid, artist, you know, and that they didn't kind of conform. And then in Chicago, the club kids sort of started to, I don't know why I'm talking about it like this, but yeah, you know, kind of separate lives that were not connected for a long time. And then I figured out how to connect portions of that plus the spiritual in my work. But that was like a 10 or 15 year journey to kind of figure all that stuff out.
But it's interesting because I can relate to that. I remember, like, it's well documented that I was a degenerate drug kid when I was in Miami.
Nice.
And that, but I think that part of that was, I liked sports and stuff like that, but like the real creative, philosophical, strange stuff was happening with the people that were maybe toying around with their heads a little bit, you know, going out to the clubs, going out to, you know, party, like doing things like ketamine and other things that people shouldn't do. But yeah, I do think that is like, it's an interesting thing because I think that there is like, you are having a communal experience that you're not necessarily, I mean, those relationships have definitely gone to the wayside, and I still have friends that are trapped with addiction issues that I love very much. But it is an interesting thing. Like, I feel like that was like, especially in a place that was like Miami, that was kind of boring, and there wasn't much to do. It was like you could explore your mind, bro, and get out there. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Did you guys like, were you able to be yourself fully and like talk about philosophy and stuff like that with the club kids, or were they like not really that interested?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, when you're on drugs late at night, you know, it's fun to talk about. Yeah, I mean, exactly what you're talking about. You know, and just that, you know, I'll be forthcoming. I'm sober now. I don't, you know, drink or do drugs or any of that stuff.
Which is good. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, like we're saying, it's like as human beings, as people in an alienated sort of modern lifestyle, the thing we need is connection.
Yeah.
We want to understand, like, what's it all about? And, clubs provide an incredible version of that I think is, simulated or fabricated based on drugs and other stuff. But what the need and the desire to get in there is very real, very meaningful. And so it wasn't sustainable for me over the long haul. And
I don't party at all.
Yeah.
I have not touched anything other than weed and alcohol in ages, except for maybe a few psychedelics here and there. But yeah, I totally...
Yeah. But now, like you said, it's, like ketamine. Ketamine is now considered a medicine, psychologically.
It always was, you fuckers. They just didn't want people tripping their balls off. That's why it was a cat tranquilizer, because cats could handle the trip.
Cats have good taste. They're
well,
cool.
Technically it's a dissociative. But I mean, it's funny that we ended up talking about ketamine,
right?
Because it is the club drug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'll be honest. I mean, I loved ketamine, and it was, and I would get to places that felt like sort of Buddhist states of disassociation.
Yeah.
And I suffered from anxiety and depression. And I would notice, I was like, man, it's funny. I do I'll go out and have like a ketamine club night, and then I feel okay about life for X amount of time afterwards. And now with now that these studies are coming out and stuff, I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah. No, I remember crying on it, but feeling good, and but feeling the release of like baggage. I mean, I was on ketamine the first time I realized that my family was dysfunctional.
Yeah. I mean,
and that was like years before my parents broke up.
Yeah.
I was just like in a hotel room with my friend, and I go, holy shit.
Yeah.
It had never occurred to me. I thought we were like a very tight-knit group.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's like a potentially life-changing sort of, realization or whatever. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a powerful, in terms of things that F you up, I would say that it can be more intense than like LSD and mushrooms, just because your body feels like it's like part of this flowing soup, and then you get up and you walk and you feel like you're walking on stilts.
Yeah,
we used to do wild stuff, but anyway, we don't want to. You're sober now. I don't want to like
trigger. I gotta get out of here.
You're like, hey, remember how good it was?
Yeah.
No, but it sounds like you're like me. You don't regret. I mean, it sounds like obviously it got to a point where you had to stop for your own well-being, which I commend you for, and I really respect.
Right.
But I totally know. I can tell, like, you were probably very fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
Just by your sunny disposition,
right.
Like the few interactions we've had outside of this interview.
Yeah.
Like, I can see, that's what I love about doing these, is like I get to get an actual sense of somebody instead of like them in a moment in a space that's like maybe overwhelming,
Yeah. Overly constructed. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, and it's part of my work, I'm like an educator, and it's like hard for me you have to be careful about like when I talk about it, how I talk about it, and that kind of stuff, which I still am figuring out how to negotiate. But another part of my work, so one thing that I did is I did ayahuasca with some shamans. I've done it a bunch, and that was a transformative, like my life like was going this way and then it went that way after that. So it's like a drug in some people's minds, but and that stuff is very much a part of my work. I don't talk about it explicitly almost ever in written format, or even this is an interesting experience for me in terms of who will see this and know about it.
Nobody. And that's how I like it. I was telling you, I was getting anxiety over it doing well.
Yeah, nice. Until the ketamine interview, and then it went wild.
Oh, dude, I've talked about it. I'm trying not to, because I also don't want to be... I mean, I know it hurt a lot of people, so I don't want to be the guy that glorifies it. Right. I know that it's a different case for everybody, but if if it hurts you, don't do it.
Well, also there's a thing that, and I would include myself, or just be talking about myself, that, you can do all this stuff and your life can be a mess, and like, so then it's like, how beneficial is it for you?
Yeah. No, totally. So. Yeah. You can, it's not, look, man, tripping all the time is not good for you.
Right.
I've done it.
Yeah. I've done the homework.
Yeah, I can attest to don't try to eat acid as because you can't like trip too frequently in a row.
Yeah.
Don't figure out how soon you can do it and then start doing like that for a month. It's just a bad idea. Yeah, man. No, I get it. I totally get it. I feel like I feel a kinship with that experience of being like, because I remember when I went to school in Florence, and I told you that I did terrible at that point.
Right.
And I was maybe the second biggest degenerate in the whole community of like kids from all over California and I'm sorry, all over America. America is bigger than California.
Yeah.
And just like that was eye-opening to just be like, oh, like I'm part of a community of children that have been traumatized by access to drugs. and in a few years we're going to be decimated, and I'm going to be sitting there with my friend and be like, oh my God, what happened to, like, you just wake up one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun, but it's hard living.
Yeah.
And when you step outside of it and you're like, this isn't normal, like that is mind blowing.
Right.
Yeah. There was one kid from Boston who used to get way more fucked up than me. And I was like,
it's always the Bostonians.
yeah. I was like, but I mean, I wasn't too far behind.
Yeah.
It was like Miami and Boston, and then everybody else was like, hey, we like to smoke weed. We're well adjusted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, who are you now? Like, what is the new sobriety, the new balance? Because obviously we've talked about how this part of it works into your work, even though you don't necessarily talk about it. But
right.
Like, one thing that I miss because I still smoke weed is just being able to have vivid dreams, because I just forget them, because of the THC in my brain.
It's so funny. Somebody just was talking about that. They were talking about Willie Nelson saying that. Yeah, he's like, when I don't smoke weed, I have incredible dreams. I was like, you don't smoke weed? When does Willie? When is he sober?
I know. Even Snoop Dogg said he got outsmoked. He was like, totally. He only kept smoking because he was with Willie Nelson and he didn't want to feel like a B word.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So tell me about that. Like, how was that process? How long have you been sober? You said how many years?
It's more than six, more than 6, almost 6.5. Yeah. And I had some like, how do I say it? Yeah. I had kind of like a nervous breakdown at a certain point. So I had to like cut out, drugs and alcohol. And then that kind of started
Did you have a particular thing was it alcohol? Was it a particular, like, were you a cokehead?
Yeah. I mean, all of the above. I like everything.
You were, you were a club kid as an adult coming to terms with being a club kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or actually it's funny. I didn't even know I had a problem.
Yeah, no.
Which is kind of, it's like news to the, the person. And I think in the end, I was just medicating different things like, depression and anxiety. And it was not the right tool for that for me. And so I've always had a spiritual side, but I had to really dig much deeper into the spiritual stuff. And then also, therapy and that kind of stuff. And so that, and that's where my work sort of comes out of now, in a way is trying to, I'm sure I heal myself through my work, but I started working with shamans and I got very much, interested into sort of indigenous wisdom traditions. And that like really captured both my, it's kind of cheesy to say it, my soul, but also my intellectual life, and that's what my work kind of steered towards. It started to reveal itself as the direction that I wanted to pursue my, artistic path.
Did you join a program or did you just do it on your own, or because those programs can be intense, but they can also be very helpful. I don't want to say which one. I leave it open so that
I've joined a lot of programs. Let's put it that way. Organizations and healing communities and stuff.
And you sponsor people and stuff, or no?
I don't know if I would say I sponsor people, but I work. I work with people. I support people. Yeah, and so and that I think beneath my work, a lot of different aspects of my life is sort of the desire to help heal people, heal, communities, that sort of thing.
Because life is traumatic enough.
Yeah.
And everybody needs some fucking healing. Yeah,
Right.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Societies need healing, individuals need healing, communities need healing. And so that sort of informs both the way I conduct myself as an artist, but, I think the TSA people might think it was weird if I said I was trying to heal them or something. But, it's about connecting, building connection with people and bringing art into the world, which I think intrinsically is a healing thing for society.
Well, just the fact that you're making communities, like you're helping keep the community together and keep it moving forward is a big deal, like that. Those are the things that help people. Yeah. I mean, I get tremendous help, like emotional support just from talking to people like this, know? It's definitely not the money. Although I hope it comes.
Well, the abundance is coming, for me, at least in this moment. And now, being with people, having connection, because that's what I wanted in the club. I wanted this. I wanted to, get to know you and get to know other people and not feel alone in the world.
Oh, yeah. Especially in the art world, which can feel like it can feel so vast and you can feel so small in it. Mm-hmm. But there is something to having people that are fighting the same fight, which it's weird to say it like that, but it is a fight to sort of be an artist nowadays, at least in the US.
Yeah.
And it is nice to sort of feel like you're not the only crazy person out here that does all this shit.
Yeah.
And
I think something that's really beautiful about the sort of sub art world that we're in, this kind of TSA, MVP, Durden and Ray, I think even I was talking about it with Carl. I think one day, there'll be some history of us and, there is a sort of subgroup within the Los Angeles culture. Why
wouldn't there be? Especially because like Monte Vista's so old. Mm-hmm. It's not even about me.
Right.
Like Monte Vista is bigger than any one of its members, and I think TSA LA too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like it all the people that were in Monte Vista when I started to like have a relationship with the space and ended up realizing that I was working my way in, all those people are gone. They've moved on and they have like crazy careers too.
Yeah.
It's like a nice stepping stone. I definitely think that something like that should be, that's kind of one of the reasons that I'm doing this. I want to document that because I think it's like if no one was there to record CBGBs or talk about it, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Who's gonna know it ever happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people were in that show? What's it called? What's his name? The Sex Pistols show. That wasn't at CBGB's. I think that was somewhere in the UK. But anyway,
but I'm sure they played at CBGB's.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
tons of times probably. Yeah,
yeah. And now it's like, I don't know. It's interesting how all of those efforts. I think that I agree with that because it's not commercial, and so people treat it with more preciousness. Mm-hmm. Like they wanna keep that memory alive.
Yeah. Yeah, and you feel it. I sort of feel like the LA art world is one of the most, if not the most, sort of friendly and warm art worlds I've been in.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's almost unsettling at first when you're like, wait,
they said hi to me when I walked in? What? Yeah.
That's literally what's happening to me with this show. Like, I think anywhere else people would be like, oh, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
He thinks he's hot shit. And people are like actually nice to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know what I think about and how dark I am. Yeah.
They're thinking it too. It's just they're just have like a tan, right?
Yeah. They're like, oh, I'm not the only one. Yeah. But they don't have a podcast, so I just feel alone.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So then what are your what can we expect from TSA moving forward? Like, what do you guys? We're like we were talking before how we're all just coming out of like COVID and grogginess and like actually starting to propose shows at Monte Vista. I just proposed a show last night. Like I've been part since for over a year now. Like why didn't I do it sooner?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like what you are co-director with Alex Peck.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you guys you have weekly long walks on the beach where you talk about the ambitions for the space?
Totally. We try and meet every 2 weeks for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour to kind of talk about stuff. It doesn't, often, one or both of us are busy and we don't quite get to make that. But, I've also been at TSA about the same time as you, so I still feel like the new kid, even though I'm like the co-director, which just means I kind of, send a few more emails than, non-co-directors or whatever. But it seems like we're in a really great place. We're, getting outside grants and stuff like that. We have quite a decent budgets for shows and stuff. So it feels like a pretty solid, organization, and then there's the larger TSA thing that Alex has sort of built up over the years with spaces and all.
Wait, so Alex does all coordinates all the other stuff?
Yeah,
he's director of all TSA.
He's I guess he's called the director of the network, or
Okay.
I mean, the titles are not that important, but he sort of helps manage the. I think we're set up as a nonprofit in New York, but we channel money to all 5 spaces to help them with their shows. I mean, all of the spaces pay dues, but it's I have to say it's a really incredible thing that he and other people have built up over the years. I mean, I
didn't know he was I mean, I knew. I first heard of him when he was when I interviewed Carl a while back,
right?
Because I didn't realize Carl wanted to step back, but I totally understand.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But then the other thing that's dope about TSA is that you guys have double duty people, because Alex is always doing a million different things.
Right.
I mean, I can't even keep up. If you tried to go to all of Alex's shows,
you'd be tired.
You would not do anything else.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm just shocked that he also does that. And that's really impressive. And then you also have Katya Udvitsky. I'm very proud of being one of the only ones in this area, in this crew that knows how to say her name.
Yeah.
And then Carl Barada. I mean, you guys have heavy hitters. This is legends of
Legends of Bendix.
Yeah, that's actually what it is. Legends, people that make the Bendix and make high beams, and stuff like that. That must be really exciting energy to be
around. Yeah, totally. I mean, Alex and Katya are the ones who pretty much brought me in, or my bridge into TSA.
Not Carl? You're not going to
no, sorry, no, I messed up. I misspoke. Carl and Katya. No, I met Carl through, Alex through TSA, and then quickly was like, I'll jump in to do the, co-director thing. Because Carl was at that point I want to step down if somebody wants to jump in. I was like, shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm getting into. Why not? So, and I feel bad because I feel like I'm the weakest link between Carl and Alex. Those two are just incredible powerhouses of productivity and, just kind of both of their instincts is really, I think, default super generous.
Yeah. I remember when I first became aware of these spaces, and it's so crazy. You have such reverence for them when you finally become part of them, and then now it's on you to run it, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah. I don't want to do this.
It's this was cooler when someone else ran it, and I was just coming to the shows. Yeah, I got to do it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm kidding. It's fun, but when anytime you're doing stuff where everybody's committed to doing it on a free volunteer basis, it is a very interesting way of working, because you're working with people that really care and are not getting paid. Right. And that's a balance right there, right. Where it's that level of investment is so crazy that we all have,
Plus combining it with exhibitions, which 9 out of 10 times are a disaster, behind the scenes, it's just a shit show of everything possible goes wrong.
Yeah. We can't find something. Yeah. We were already laughing that we've lost the back of the remote control for this television.
Totally.
You can never find the drill.
Where are the instructions and the wave, the media players, Fritz. Yeah, it's just.
This wall is made of concrete. We gotta, dude, that drilling into that concrete wall, just putting all of your weight into it is so boring.
Yeah.
and it's entirely based on faith, because you're like, maybe this one's the one that's not going to go through. What were you going to say? You were funny?
We're just drilling into the ceiling. I was drilling into the ceiling with somebody. We're just like coming away with faces of white dust. We're like, nope, that's not it.
Yeah, all the art handling is always a little bit of drama, and you're dealing with people's work too, which is fun. It's like,
I hate touching art.
I know.
Like enough time, you're like, I don't want to break it. I don't want to get, smudge it. Or
you put it aside and then you put it up and that's it. Well, cool, man. Anything that you maybe wanted to talk about that I have not, in my psychic abilities, been able to divine?
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel bad that I didn't come in with a thesis.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
No,
but I mean, I think
the thesis is mine.
Yeah.
I don't know what my thesis is. You don't have to present a thesis.
My thesis for life. Well, I think it's connection, I mean, for me, the pandemic, like everyone, isolation and all of that. And I was supported by, being with students, but also being part of spiritual clubs and stuff like that. But I was like, shit, as an artist, I'm completely closed off and kind of alone and not networking. And, and I knew Carl, I got into the high beams thing. And then, I heard that TSA was looking for new members, and that was just the kind of logical progression. And for me, that's been a really organizing principle, is how can I be in a community? How can I contribute to something instead of, just trying to take or get,
No, yeah, totally. Yeah. No, and I mean, you fit in right away. Like the first time you had your show where you had the fan here, and you were with your dog, and that was the most Miami outfit. I was like, I was like, but then you were so friendly. And I was like, there's no way this guy's from Miami. Right. Miami people aren't like that.
Yeah. Well, good. Dressed like Miami.
Yeah. You're like, you are as inviting as the apparel that you wear.
The neon.
The neon colors. Yeah, man. And then, so what do you, when you say spiritual clubs, what are you talking about? Like, just like, because it's not a church. It's obviously, I don't take you as a cult guy.
Yeah. No. Well, no, it is a cult. I mean, I'm joking, but I mean, I want to start a cult. I'm trying to figure out how to get there. We're still.
You're at the right age to start. This is around the time.
Yeah. We're working with the tailors on our suits right now. But yeah, no, I mean, just different, communities and stuff of, spiritually minded people.
So like there's like Buddhist communities and stuff like that where you like meet and talk about stuff. Buddhist scripture, or
like meditation groups and stuff like that.
Meditation groups. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, anything that we can promote for you? Anything you got coming up? Do you have a show?
Yeah, so I have a show at LA Mission College that's opening officially on the Monday, April 10th, but there's a reception on the 11th, Tuesday from 5 to 9.
Cool. I don't think this will come out before then, but it's good to let people know you're hustling.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Ricardo Harris Fuentes, at Ricardo Harris Fuentes.
Yep.
No underscores, nothing fancy. Just
nothing fancy, all one word.
There aren't that many Ricardo Harris Fuentes.
You get to Harris F, and it's me.
Well, I love the like sandwiching of American. Ricardo and Fuentes bread, Latin bread.
Right, totally.
It was like tostadas cubanas with some white meat chicken.
Yeah, no, my dad's like, my white dad's like, you're a coconut. You're brown on the outside, white on the inside. Just like my name.
Yeah. So. I would say that was racist if Latinos didn't do that to each other as well.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm teasing.
Yeah. No, it is. I was like, wait, that's a little weird. He said that.
You're just realizing it now. I'll just put a slow motion clip.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being a nice member of the community. I always have fun. I really enjoyed your show at a gallery also. Awesome. Who curated that? Carl?
Carl. Yeah,
cool.
Carl.
Carl's a good friend.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's a generous friend.
Yeah.
Where's my show, Carl? No.
Is this on?
Carl is so generous.
I'm thinking next November.
I can get my own shows, Carl.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a treat.
Yeah, man. I always love to get to know the people around a little bit better, and I feel like we've accomplished that. I definitely know that at 15, we would have fucking torn it up.
For sure. For sure.
I maybe would have been like, trance is not quite for me, but I would have definitely gotten down on it because I wasn't that much of an elitist.
Yeah. But hey, if you had ketamine, I'd be into country. I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Man, I remember watching, I don't even know what it was, but I remember watching a TV from my friend's bed, and we were just hanging out watching it, and it felt like I was in Cinema Paradiso, where they're like, were they showing the movies in the piazza? I was in a bedroom.
Yeah. Hey, people down there.
Yeah, like ketamine is definitely one of the wildest parties that you can have, for sure. And it makes everything seem like a coincidence. You're always like, you're like, oh my God, the movie, we made it to it on time.
Yeah.
But all these little things had to work out. And you're like,
we got in the cab. And
but the cab was perfectly timed. And then that happens, like that lingers after you've been getting high for like maybe a week. And then afterwards you're like, I'm full of shit.
Yeah. We just called it.
All right, man. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week with another guest with another topic that may or may not be art related. And thank you for watching.